Posthumanism as a practice of existence. Why am I here to talk about this? I've been working as a philosopher for some years about posthumanism, and at one point I started to really think, well, what does this mean as a being, as a person? What does it mean to be a posthuman? So I came with some answers, and I want to see if you agree with me and come with some more ideas together. So the abstract of this talk is, posthumanism offers an invitation to think inclusively in a genealogical relocation of humanity within multiversality. We're going to talk about the multiverse later on, and alterity within the self. So we are not one but many. So how does such an approach affect our daily practices of existence? In other words, what does it mean to live as a posthuman? Does posthumanism, with its emphasis on interconnectedness and non-human agency, necessarily call for environmentalism? I know some of you are working on environmental studies, so it's very exciting that you're here with me. Does its post-hierarchical recognition of the non-human animal put into question omnivorism? So if we're talking about non-human agency, can we eat animals if we need to? If we are not starving, that's another thing, but if we're not starving, do we need to eat other animals? In this talk, I will argue that posthumanism marks ground for a radical reflection in the field of applied philosophy and normative ethics. We will explore the ethics and pragmatics of living and dreaming, eating and consuming, socializing and demystifying. We will reflect on the risks connected to reiterating dualistic habits of existence. Posthumanism will be approached as a philosophy of life in order to understand what it means to think and to live as a posthuman. So this is what I'm trying to do here. It's trying to go back to the very birth of philosophy. Ancient Greek, when people were not just writing about philosophy, they were trying to live what they were thinking of. And this is what they want to bring the posthuman. It's not only academia, it's how we relate to ourselves into existence. So of course I like to hybridize fields, and I want to do an experiment. I never done it before, so if it doesn't work, let me know. Raise your hands at one point and say, this is not working. But I'm going to play reverse this beautiful movie, Cohn, funny name, especially for an Italian, but it means life out of balance. And it's a 1982 documentary directed by Godfrey Reggio with music composed by Philip Glass. The film is the first of the quasi-trilogy that is followed by two other movies, one from 1988 and one in 2002. And the trilogy depicts different aspects of the relationship between humans, nature, and technology. The film contains no dialogue nor vocalized narration. So this movie, if you see, now you're going to see the reverse version, but if you see the movie itself, there is no voice, there is no dialogue, there is only music and images. Why? So this is how the director Reggio explained his choice. From my point of view, our language is in a state of vast humiliation. It no longer describes the world in which we live. And in a similar way, the posthuman is a term coined to cope with the urgency for an integral redefinition of the notion of the human, following the onto-epistemological as well as the scientific and biotechnological developments of the 20th and 21st century. So if kaya ni katsi, which is a word in the Sami language, in the Hopi language, if this term means life out of balance, in this search for the specificities of a human existential approach, playing reverse this word may help us to produce vision of a balanced existential approach. So I'm going to start playing it. I also, when I'm going to see you like starting to look for flowers outside, I means that you are losing me, so I'm going to take little pauses and play this sound, which is very beautiful, try to hybridize philosophical talk, which sometimes is a little heavy, with a different approach. So I'm going to start now. You're going to see the music is experimental, it's Philip Glass. I'm not going to keep the sound behind my voice, but when I see again Isis looking for ghosts and stuff, I know that you're not here with me anymore, and then I'm going to take a pause and play some sound, and then go back to philosophy. Philosophy can be a little hard sometimes to follow, so now we need some pauses. I also would like you to, I also invite you to mix the words of my talk with the images played in the screen, hybridizing feels and signification and resting the mind and the body whenever needed. So if at one point you need to move around the space, please feel free to do so. Okay, so if you feel like your back is hurting, just start to walk around, it's totally fine. I would love it, it's not a problem at all. So also if you wish to dance, to do yoga, to do any other movements that you need to do, as much as it's legal and you're not doing something that is illegal, while being here with us, please go ahead. This is important to envisioning a posthuman existential approach in which all of you feel fine. Okay? It's not only your body, it's your mind. It's not only your mind, it's also your body. So I want to respect your body as well. And last thing, something is certain. To be posthuman, we do not need to stay seated. Is that clear? So you don't need to sit to be posthuman. I will also use, as I said, some pause of music in this philosophical concept. And yes, and I will allow the reverse of this movie track to accompany us in our posthuman journey. And now we are ready to start our talk. Premises. Before delving into our topic today, something that we are going to do together later, I first need to locate this talk as part of a wave which is happening. This posthuman wave is happening. Posthumanism is becoming a highly fashionable trend in and outside of academia. Conferences, publications, articles, debates, movies, and books are flourishing around the notion of the posthuman, which has currently become an umbrella term to include philosophical, cultural, and critical posthumanism, transhumanism, its variants as extropianism, liberal transhumanism, democratic transhumanism, among other currents, new materialism, a specific development, the heterogeneous landscape of anti-humanism, post-humanities, meta-humanities, and so on. You can go on and on. So there is a wave that is happening. There are many different schools of thought, which is exciting. It's really something that you are at the right place at the right time. It feels good. It feels good that the discussion is happening. So such a fashionable wave is, again, an extremely positive element. People are ready to hear, and they actually want to know what we mean by posthuman. I actually was at the conference in Greece in 2009, the World Congress of Philosophy, and we had 2 events of posthumanism, and the room was full. And this, I'm talking about an event where there are 14 talks at the same time, and some of them, as much as they were very interesting, but they were completely empty. Posthumanists, they were full, and I asked how many people here know about posthumanism, and no one knew anything. They were there to learn, so it was very interesting. So people are ready to hear what we mean by posthuman. Okay, on the other side, precisely because we, between the comma, is not one but many, a lot of confusion and misunderstanding accompany the wave of the posthuman. The most confused areas of significations are the ones shared by posthumanism and transhumanism. Although they share a common perception of the human as a non-fixed and mutable condition, they generally do not share the same roots nor perspective. Okay, I'm not going to elaborate further on this point. If you're interested in exploring the differences between posthumanism and transhumanism, I can refer you to my article, Posthumanism, Transhumanism, Anti-Humanism, Meta-Humanism, and New Materialism, Differences and Relations. You can find it on my website. I gave you my little paper there, my little card. But here I would only like to add that the notions of posthuman and posthumanist are interrelated but not synonym. So we already see the difference between transhuman and posthuman. Just briefly, if you're not used to these words, transhuman is a philosophical trend that is really focusing on human enhancement. So the focus is enhancing the human. And posthumanism is a post-dualistic trend that is talking about cyborgism, but from a post-dualistic mindset. We are going to get into the posthuman much more in details. And also posthuman and posthumanist are not the same term. Posthuman applies to a broad field of studies, including advanced robotics, nanotechnology, and bioethics. Now, posthumanist mainly refers to a shift in the humanistic paradigm and its anthropocentric Weltanschauung. Furthermore, within the transhumanist debate, the concept of posthumanism itself is interpreted in a specific way. For some transhumanists, human beings may eventually transform themselves so radically as to become posthuman, a condition which will follow the current transhuman era. Again, I know that it's very confusing. Just to clarify, posthuman, transhuman is different philosophical trend, but you can get more confused thinking that within the transhuman debate, the term posthuman is used as something that is not happening yet, but is going to come in the close or in the far future. Okay, so we are not posthuman yet for the transhumanists. We may become. Some of us may become. Now, as a posthuman, I say we're already posthuman in the way we think, in the way we approach existence. You see the difference? Posthuman is for the transhuman, not happening yet. Posthuman for the posthumanist, it's happening already. Okay, such a take should not be confused with a post-anthropocentric and post-dualistic approach of philosophical, cultural, and critical posthumanism, where I wish to locate my work and my talk today. It is important to highlight this point because post-anthropocentrism and post-dualism are not relevant aspects of the transhuman approach. Transhumanism, which locates itself in the tradition of rational humanism, focuses specifically on human enhancement, often revealing a deeply anthropocentric approach. Okay, so actually sometimes transhumanism is called the ultra-humanism. Posthumanism, we are post-humanism in the sense that we deconstruct the concept of humanism, and we're going to go into the detail later on, but for the transhuman humanism, it's not a problem. Actually, transhumanists are an ultra-humanism, because again, transhumanism is related to enhancing the human. Okay. And so what? And so what? Some of you may ask. What is the problem with humanism, and more in general with the human? Why are we here trying to deconstruct the human? Why are we promoting a post-human, post/humanistic, and post/dualistic paradigm shift? Why are we here to mention that? Well, there are many answers to be given. In a simple way, we can state that a post-dualistic approach, located in the recognition of the differences, marks ground for a way of existing in which the otherness is not completely separated from the self, with all the political, ecological, and private implications that such a recognition may entail. On the other side, what is the problem related to a dualistic perception of the human? In order to answer to this question, I will take a step back and explore how we became human. So how we became human? Again, why are we here saying we need to deconstruct the notion of the human, we need to deconstruct the notion of humanism? Why is the problem dualism? Some people might say, I'm totally fine with dualism. So in order to answer the problem, the question why dualism may be a problem, I'm going to start trying to answer the question how we became human. When was the point that we decided, okay, now we are human, we are not something else? So the word human derives from Latin humanus, an adjective cognate to humus, not humus. I know that Israel love humus, not talking about humus, talking about humus with one M, meaning earth, ground, soil, or notion of earthly beings, whose symbolic realm would mark the border with the one of the celestial gods. Again, don't confuse earth, planet with the earth like the ground, because at the time the earth was not conceived the planet yet. Okay? So we're talking about almost like the ground, the soil. So this is where humanus, human, comes from, humus. In the evolutionary history of life, which focuses on the evolution of living and fossil organisms, the term human refers to the Homo genus and includes not only modern humans, Homo sapiens, us, in other term, but other species closely related and now extinct. So we have the family Homo, in which there are many different species, and the only one that is still going on is us, the Homo sapiens. From a posthuman perspective, it is important to observe that the earliest evidence of stone tool usage precedes the paleontological advent of Homo. Technology is not something separated from the human, but can be seen as a mode of biological revealing. So humans are humans because of technology. There is no separation between technology and the human. Still, the scientific classification of humans has considerably changed over time, and its exact makeup is constantly under debate. Historically, the recognition of the human status has been regularly switched on and off. So not all humans have been human, okay? Some humans have been humans more than others. In the American system of slavery, for instance, captives were considered property to the extent that, in some cases, owners had legal rights to kill them. In Nazi Germany, 1933 to 1945, so that's 12 years, this pattern reached a dramatic apex. The Nazis, as stated at this historian Kate, abolished the line separating human and animal and articulated a new hierarchy based on race, which placed certain species or races of animals above races between intercommas, because there is one race which is the human race. There are not many races, but in the Nazi discourse there were different races of humans, and so which placed certain species of races of humans above races of humans. Eagles and wolves and pigs in the new human hierarchy of the Nazis were placed above Poles and Reds and Jews. And in the dissolution of the human-animal divide, this dissolution was sealed in blood. The Nazis exterminated approximately 6 million European Jewish and millions of others, including Germans with mental and physical disabilities, homosexuals, Roma, more commonly said Gypsies, Poles, Jehovah's Witnesses, and Soviet prisoners of war. I also want to mention that although it is impossible to determine the exact number of victims, of Jewish victims, 6 million is the round figure accepted by most authorities. So this is very important to remind that what is the human? Who has been the human? The humans is not one, but many, and humans has been not, they didn't have the same treatment in the history of the humankind. This is very important to focus. That's why we're talking about who is the human. We need to talk about that. Also, another example is the European witch trials in the early modern period, which ended in an estimation of 60,000 executions. Again, the numbers are problematic always here. This estimate is problematic since the murders were not systematically recorded, and many of the archives which existed have been lost. The number of deaths could be much higher. Consequently, historians have not settled on a figure. But this is another important example. Okay, so the European witch trials in the early modern period, which ended in an estimation of 60,000 executions, a large majority of women, proved another discontinuity within the human frame. Not only the lives of those humans considered inferior could be taken, but also the ones of those who were assumed to be supernatural should be sacrificed in order to keep the human realm safe. The witch hunt proved superstition as one of the hidden forces behind law-making apparatuses, next to biological determinism, scientific racism, and ethnocentrism. In philosopher Rosi Predotti words, we all have bodies, but not all bodies are equal. Some matter more than others. This is why we need to deconstruct the notion of the human. Historically, not every human has been treated as a human being, and we cannot forget that. So geohistorically situated, the human body stands as a symbolic text of cognitive and social processes. The establishment of a discourse of perversion, here I'm mentioning Foucault, and the consequent practices of normalization of the perverse, such as the Nazi genocide and the witch hunt, are embedded to its genealogy, in a recurring paradigm of human abjection. More in general, it can be argued that human identity to cure has formed historically and theoretically through the construction of the other between intercommas. Animals, automata, children, women, people of color other than white, queers, etc., 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 you can go on and on and on and on, mark the shifting borders of what would become the human through a process of performative rejections. This is the reason why we need a post-humanist understanding of the human, according to which the human is not one but many. That's very important. There is not one human. There are many humans. Look at us now. We're all humans, but each of us is different. We cannot forget that. The difference is embedded within the notion of existence, and evolution moves towards diversification. Such a high, okay, good, okay, let's play some music, probably we need it. Look how the humans are, the machine, lights, energy. Look at this assemblage. So, such a hierarchical formula, so the idea of the human, that not all the humans are the same, but some humans has been treated as more human than others, and this is hierarchy. So there is like you can think of a pyramid, I'm going to talk about the great chain of being now, but a hierarchy of the notion of the human. Such a hierarchical formula has not only sustained the primacy of humans over non-human animals, but as we have previously seen, it has also informed the human realm itself, developed through sexist, racist, classist, homophobic, and ethnocentric presumption. Furthermore, it has sustained discontinuities, such as during the Nazi regime, according to which some humans would be less valuable than some non-human animals. You see the discontinuity of the human, non-human realm in the Nazi discourse. The problem here is not which order would be the right one, so it's not like which animals are more animals than others, but the problem here is hierarchy itself. This is the problem. The rhizomatic ethics of the post-human do not support the notions of superiority and inferiority. This is very important. There is no hierarchy within the post-human frame. There is not inferior, there is not superior, there are only differences. That's what we can claim, the difference of existence. And it's not who is more and who is less. So posthumanism is not only a post/humanism, but is also a post/anthropocentrism. What is the difference here? So in the West, but not only, the human has been historically placed in a hierarchical scale to the non-human realm, based on a human exceptionalism which can be traced back to the symbolic structure of the great chain of being, of Platonic and Aristotelian origins. Rooted in Plato, Aristotle, and the Old Testament, the great chain of being depicted a hierarchical structure of all matter and life, even in its hypothetical forms, such as angels and demons, starting from God. This model, with contextual differences and specificities, passed on in its Christian interpretation to the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, until the 18th century. So what we're talking about, the great chain of being, is the Scala Naturae, in which God is at the very top, and then all the other beings are coming after God, the angels, the humans, and it's very hierarchical, okay? So this hierarchical notion of the human can be definitely traced back to Aristotle, to Plato, Aristotle, and to the Old Testament, and to the Christian also view of the human, which is based on human exceptionalism. So humans are more exceptional animals than other animals that are not human. That's why, for instance, humans can eat other animals. This is based in many religions have no problem eating, for instance, non-human animals. So another source, talking about hierarchy, which has historically sustained the privilege of the human, is the biblical statement of man made in the image of God, which can be found in different passages of the Old Testament, and specifically in Genesis. Many parts of Genesis talk about it, 1:26, 27, 5, 1-3, 9, 6. And still, such a claim is not that immediate. Humans are obviously different. Again, look at us now. Look around. Check around. Do you see the people that are exactly the same? Do you see two clones here? I don't see any clones. Also, clones are not exactly the same, by the way, because there is some part of the DNA that change anyway. So there is not exact humans that are exactly the same with each other. So humans are obviously different. Look at us now, right now. Consequently, which kind of human is the closest to image of God if God created the human in its own image? Is God male, female, transgender, postgender? Is God black, white, blue, yellow, orange, or post-race? Is God Jewish, Christian, Muslim, pagan, Hindu, or post-religious? Some answers here? It's not an easy question, no? So forget about it. Forget about it. It's not an easy question, and not trying to answer to these questions, but I will offer some path of reflection to these points by answering one simple question, which I can answer. What is posthumanism? Posthumanism. Posthumanism is a theoretical frame, as well as an empirical one, which can apply to any field of inquiry, starting from our location as a species to the individual case. Posthumanism addresses the question, who am I, in conjunction with other related questions, such as what am I, and where and when are we? The existential aspects are not disjunct to political and spatio-temporal elements. On one side, such an approach has a festive element. The loneliness of the Western subject is lost in the recognition of the others as interconnected to the self. On the other side, the awareness of distributed agency in the evolving body of space-time becomes intrinsically resonant, as does each existential performance. There is not absolute otherness. We exist in a material net in which everything is actually connected and potentially interactive. Such an awareness generates theoretical as well as pragmatic considerations. In the 21st century, the impact of anthropocentric habits on Earth is becoming so massive that geologists are addressing the present era as the Anthropocene, in which human actions are seriously affecting the ecosystem. In the past, humans were not recognized as agents directly causing climate changes. It is now common knowledge that the Earth is collapsing under the massive quantity of non-recycled garbage produced daily, the high emission of atmospheric greenhouse gases, and the level of pollution introduced into the natural environment. I actually want to say that I'm very glad to see the way you collect plastic in Israel. It's really beautiful, these little cages where you put the bottles. That's very smart. Coming from New York, it's such a relief to see that, because in New York there is so much waste that it's really very anthropocentric, and it's nice to see that not every country does the same with their own plastic. So very excited about that. I wanted to take pictures, show my student in New York. Look at Israel. Yeah, that's smart. So the way the majority of current human societies are performing their material interacting in this world is based on anthropocentric premises, which are leading to a point of no return in ecological and sustainable terms. Yeah, again, I go to New York, I'm going to get anything, a coffee, they put like a pot, coffee in the plastic, within the plastic bag, 500 napkins when I'm going to use only one, and you drink your coffee within 5 minutes and then you throw everything, and there is pretty much no recycling bin. So that's very anthropocentric. That's something that needs to be changed. There is no future that way. We need to change that. Since everything is connected, and we need to change it not only for the Earth, but for the humans as well. This damaged balance is also directly affecting human well-being. An example can be seen in the alarming global rise on cancer rates. So this is very important to stress. Also think selfishly about yourself. Living in a very polluted world means that we are already seeing an alarming global rise of cancer. So again, there is no disconnection. We are polluting the environment, and the environment is polluting human existence. So how can we achieve a change there? Humanists may not be overwhelmed in changing such a direction. Posthumanism, on the other hand, can be the turning point by bringing to the discussion crucial notions, such as speciesism. If you're not familiar with this, speciesism would be like something like racism, ethnocentrism, sexism, speciesism. So discriminations based on the species. Then entanglement and non-human agency, among others. So not only humans have agency in this existence. Posthumanism criticizes anthropocentric humanism and opens its inquiry to non-human life, from animals, from non-human animals, to artificial intelligence, from aliens to other forms of hypothetical entities related to the physics notion of the multiverse. In so doing, it articulates the condition for a post-human epistemology concerned with non-human experience as a site of knowledge. Posthumanism calls for environmentalism, deep ecology, animal rights, and roboethics. For instance, The symbolic relocation of the human, of the animal in a non-hierarchical value system may ethically conflict with the killing of other forms of life for human leisure. The posthuman refusal of the ontological primacy of human existence invites a review of practices such as uncritical omnivorism, over-harvesting, and the unrestricted consumption of non-renewable resources. And Carmel, on the way here, she was mentioning the Dead Sea and how the Dead Sea is actually shrinking because of this unrestricted consumption of non-renewable resources. I think 5 generations from now, your nephews or how you would be them, whatever, children of the children of the children, they're going to go to the Dead Sea and they're going to see a digital picture because there is no seed left. And we have to think about this stuff. We cannot just take everything we can. That's okay. Let's go back. We need a little pause, some music here. Or what do you think? Little music there? It's been a class, kind of monotone, but it's taken to a trance state of mind. You need to walk around or you're fine? Your body's doing good? Alright. Alright, so posthumanism reflects on the terms of human sustainability, but it does not dismiss the significance of human survival. So it's not that non-humans are more important than humans, again, it's a post-hierarchical claim. So in not rejecting human or individual rights, posthumanism differs from anti-humanism. The semantics of the two terms account for another discrepancy. More than an anti, posthumanism is a post-meta-trans. Posthumanism does not necessarily rely on the death of God, quoting Nietzsche. I know that there are many postmodernists here, nor on the death of man, quoting Foucault, since the assumption of a death are already based on the recognition of the symbolic dualism dead-alive, which has been challenged by the posthuman post-dualistic reflection. So we don't see a strict division between death and life. Furthermore, if God or man, not the masculine form, Foucault doesn't say the death of the human, he said it's the death of man. So if God or man are dead, who killed them? Are the women here killed God and man? I don't think so. I didn't kill my husband, he's happily here. So, if God or man are dead, who killed them? This is a relevant question for the simple fact that if someone is talking about their death, it means that someone has survived. Who is the survivor of this killing action? So you see the dualism here, what I mentioned in the dualism. You're killing someone, who is surviving there? Not Nietzsche, not Foucault will talk about it. Again, for Foucault, the man is just a specific historical man he's talking about. But again, as a posthuman, I don't like to rely on the notion of death or death, because it's a very dualistic mindset. And dualism keeps coming back, born out of its own ashes. Such a dualistic mindset creates an imbalance which needs to be acknowledged and deconstructed in order to understand where and how it is silently enacting. Just to clarify, death in the posthumanism is seen as a process. That's why for some transhumans they believe in cryonics, in which the moment that you die, you've been cryonized, and then eventually you can be bring back to life in the future. So again, that is not the moment you die. Your body takes time. It's more of a process than just a moment. We delve already into post-humanism and post-anthropocentrism. It is now time to look into post-dualism to fully understand what a philosophical post-humanist approach may entail in the area of ethics and pragmatics. By doing this, I will go back to the question of God. From a post-dualistic perspective, there is no separation between subject and object, ontology and metaphysics, creature and creator. I was also very inspired to talk about God because I went to Jerusalem yesterday, and it was a very inspiring place. So it was very, very deep emotion. And so yeah, let's talk about the divine. Ontologically, posthumanism offers a revisitation of being as transcendent immanence, disrupting one of the founding splits of Western thought, the one between transcendence and immanence, which symbolically relates to every other traditional dualism, such as the mind-body, subject-object, self-other, male-female, white-black, human, non-human, etc., etc. Its metaphysics are related to the physics hypothesis of the multiverse. So first of all, let me clarify what that by multiverse I am referring to the scientific investigation of matter from the micro to the macro levels of materialization, which recently brought different fields from quantum physics to cosmology and astrophysics to the same hypothetical conclusion. This universe might be one of many. Here, I should also mention that multiverse is not a theory, but a prediction of certain theories, as cosmology Max Tegmark stresses. For instance, the math of string theory, in order to function, requires a distinct feature, which is extra dimensions of space. Consequently, advancing the hypothesis that this specific dimension is only one of the many occurring. So there will be many dimensions happening at the same time. Again, there is no time separated from space. The hypothesis of the multiverse gives rise to ontological possibilities which stretch our universe-centric perspective, and theologically resonates with panentheism, according to which the divine permeates every part of the universe and transcends timelessly and spacelessly beyond it. So God will be permeating this dimension and all the other dimensions happening as well. And there is no separation there either. More in general, posthumanism questions any form of centrism, from universe centrism, so that there is that this universe is at the center of all the other universes, to biocentrism. We open to the digital realm. There is not a centrism on the biological aspect of existence, and the concept of life itself, blurring the boundaries between animate and inanimate, physical and digital, immanence and transcendence, in a quantum approach to the physics of existence. And still, the impact of such a historical redundancy of reductionist and dualistic approaches in human thoughts and actions should not be underestimated. Posthumanism recognizes its own standpoints as post-dualistic rather than non-dualistic. This is very interesting, especially in Asia and India. There is a lot of tradition that have a very specific non-dual standpoints, which is very interesting. But posthumanism, coming out of academia and of the Western standpoint, doesn't recognize itself as non-dual but as post-dual. What is the difference? What is the difference there between post-dual and non-dual? Okay, the difference is that, as we have seen, within hegemonic system of thought, the episteme have been repeatedly dualistic. So again, the human and humans that were less than some humans. So we cannot forget that. So we cannot just say, oh, we've always been non-dual. No, we've been dual. Humans have been dual. That's why it's important to not forget history. We cannot forget history and history either. So in tune with Derrida's deconstructive approach, posthumanism is aware of the fact that such dualistic presumptions cannot be easily dismissed. The overcoming of dualisms called upon by posthumanism includes the traditional divide between theory and practice. Posthumanism is praxis. It has to be comprehensive in its contents as well as in the way such contents are explored. Now we're going to the second part, which is going towards the conclusion, but here it's important to remember that as a post-dualistic philosophy, we cannot only write posthumanism and then having a humanistic approach in our existence. We can do that. Again, posthumanism is many, it's not only one. But my vision of the posthuman is also, there is no separation between theory and practice. That's why posthumanism is a praxis. Life-changing habits and modes of existence. So in the emerging field of posthuman studies, extensive debate has been formulated on what is posthumanism. The main focus has been directed towards the contents and meanings of a posthuman paradigm shift. while its praxis has hardly been disputed. In the last part of this talk, I will address what it entails to adopt a posthuman approach, marking ground for a radical understanding of the posthuman, allowing us to investigate not only technical technologies such as robotics, cybernetics, biotechnology, nanotechnology, among others, which is very fascinating and is part of the posthuman, but also, so this is only part of the posthuman, but we cannot only focus on that, but also technologies of existence, emphasizing the relevance of posthumanism as a contemporary philosophy of life. How can we enact post-dualistic, non-hierarchical posthuman approaches in the ethics of our daily practices of living? Experiencing posthumanism as a praxis means to be thinking of the environment not as a standing resource, to use Heidegger terms, but as part of the self. Once the self, far from the quantified one, it's very fashionable now talking about the quantified self. Now we're not talking about the quantified self, we're talking about the qualified and de-quantified self as an assemblage. In Exodus, God says to Moses, I am who I am, and I love that line. Such an openness implies an integral understanding of the notion of the post-dual. Be the change you want to see, to quote Gandhi. In the non-dual tradition of yoga, as well in the post-dualistic tradition of the posthuman, self-transformation corresponds to the transformation of the entire plane of being. And now this is my conclusion. Living as a posthuman opens to the possibility of an existence which is seen in symbiosis with the rest of humanity and of the animal kingdom, with the environment, the planet, the ways of light of the digital realm, the multiverse, our possible futures. And the futures are already present. They are here, in our acts, in our visions, in our behaviors, in our words, in our dreams, in what we eat and what we drink, in what we produce and in what we buy, in what we recycle and in what we do not recycle. Posthumanism is a post-dualism. Macropolitics are the mirrors of macropolitics. By our acts, our thoughts, our repetitions, our visions, we are constituting existence. In the interconnected rhizome of space-time, in the quantum grid of physics, in the expanded identity of the self, what we eat, what we dream, the products we use, the people we relate to, our actions and our reactions constitute who and what we are. Existence is a process, constantly manifesting, enacting, evolving. Each being is part of such enactment, and thus has agency in the existential evolution of space-time. Living like a posthuman means being the self and the others, in a genealogical relocation of humanity within multiversality, and alterity within the self. The art of living can be integrally invested as a technology of the self. More in general, posthumanism fully invests in the dynamic natural culture of existence. Natural culture altogether, this is a horrible word, in the dynamic natural culture of existence. It consequently foresees the potentials of partaking in the process of evolution with pragmatical excitement, clear vision, and full awareness. Thanks for your kind attention.